I've got few fans, I guess, in Oslo. I did not expect that. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Maybe I should just stay standing here in silence. This picture will tell you the whole truth, I guess. Because what is the son of a Hamas leader doing here at the anti-Semitism conference? Sounds strange a little. I was walking down the street and I saw a brother trying to jump off a bridge. And I told him, please don't do it. Please don't do it, brother. Just come back. And he said, no, I'm going to jump. Nobody loves me. Well, I told him, God loves you, man. Just come back. Please don't jump. Don't kill yourself. I told him, do you believe in God? He said, yes, of course. I said, are you a Christian or a Jew? He said, I'm a Christian. I said, me too. Then I asked him, what denomination? Protestant or Catholic? He said, Protestant. I said, me too. What franchise? He said, Baptist. I said, me too. Southern or Northern? He said, Northern. I said, me too. Conservative or liberal? He said, conservative. I said, me too. Then I asked him, which conservative council? 1879 or 1912? He said, Baptist Conservative Council, 1912. And I said, what? Then die, you heretic. And I pushed him over. This is just a teaser for my Christian friends. I don't know what denomination you're coming from, but it really doesn't matter. And I'm glad that, the cause of Israel, brought us all together. I'm not an Israeli advocate. Mr. Ambassador here of Israel, it's a great honor. And it's nice to meet you. Is representing a government. He's representing the state of Israel. I am not. I'm not a political activist. I am not even a religious activist. I transcended religions and politics a long time ago. I don't need those masks to wear. And I'm straightforward. But when I speak of Israel, it's not coming from a political point of view. Because Israel, to me, as a person, as an observer, a person who likes to experience things and to experience the truth rather than taking the truth from second-hand knowledge, I have my own understanding of Israel. Not as a person, not as a government, not as a nation, but as a journey, as an evolution. And anyone who is anti-Israel, what they don't understand, that they are anti-life, and they are anti-existence. Because how can you not appreciate and bow to the journey of Israel. All of us are Israel. Existence is Israel. Humanity is Israel. When we think about the journey outside of Babylon, of Egypt, of the Arab Peninsula, struggle against all the enemies and all the forces of darkness, trying to kill people who choose to be the people of God. They're not the chosen ones because they are the chosen ones. They are the chosen ones because it's a choice they have made. I don't know and I don't care what imagination in their head about God, but they choose God. And I appreciate that. You read my mind, brother. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That's nothing. An example of forgiveness and a nation that is pro-life. When we look at the Holocaust and what this nation had to overcome, instead of seeking death, revenge, hatred, it's obvious for any observer to see that the Israeli nation, and again, this is not only a government or a country or a political regime, it's not a territory. It's beyond the fence of the Middle East. It's beyond the globe. It's universal. It's cosmic. And choose life. Where are the Jewish terrorist attacks as a response to the Holocaust and many other persecutions and oppressions from dark people who live in ignorance? And we think that the Nazis are gone. But we don't understand that they're still among us. Those who deny the Holocaust are Nazis. Simply. I take responsibility for this. Any government who wants to persecute me for this, welcome. Whether if they sit in a government, in a church, in a mosque, wherever they are, they have one thing in common, that they are Nazis. And they are among us. They live in delusion. I don't know what sick imagination that they have in head regarding to Israel and to the Jewish people. When we look at the Jewish people and you see all the ethics, values, science, medicine, arts, and how much this small nation contributed to humanity, apparently some of us maybe feel uncomfortable about this truth. Maybe there is a sense of jealousy within, a little bit of hatred that we like to project. And instead of saying thank you, we cut the hand that helps us. Because what makes Norwegians get so involved in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict? Oh, I'm pro-Palestinian. Well, guess what? The moment you become a pro-Palestinian, immediately you are anti-Israel. But you can be pro-Israel, and then you will be 100% pro-Palestinian as well. There is no difference between where I came from, where I was born, Ramallah. Small place, disconnected from the world at that time. There was no internet, no satellite. And all the knowledge that came from the external, from the outside, came from the mosque, from parents, from the school, from the streets, and created the illusion that Israel is our enemy. And as children, we didn't have the power to discern truth from falsehood. We believed. And all we see Israeli soldiers with guns. At that time, we did not see in them as protectors of the only democratic model in the entire region. But it agreed with the image that our society wanted us to see of Israel as vampires. Some people here in Europe still believe that Jews eat human beings. This is their propaganda to go against Israel and boycott Israel. Spread more lies. Excuse me, I had a cold a few days ago. It was not a fun one. Conditionings. Palestinian leaderships, Hamas and Mahmoud Abbas, the right and the left, moderates and extremists, they all have one thing in common: their hatred towards Israel. Actually, what's so-called moderate Palestinian, in my opinion, is more dangerous than the extreme one. Because the extreme terrorist, we know their intention, we know what they're all about, and we know how to deal with them somehow. At least there is a plan. But the hypocrite who hate with the name of peace and with the name of love is much more dangerous, much more sophisticated lie, in my opinion. They know that there is no room for a Palestinian state, but they are pushing a Palestinian state anyway. Yasser Arafatism did not die when Yasser Arafat died. It's a phenomenon. Palestinian leaderships, they know. The more Palestinian children die, the more Europeans, full Europeans, will sympathize and give us money. More Arabians will give us money. And the more chaos we create in the region, the more sympathy and the more support we get from the free world. This is their game. And the fools in Norway, and the fools I don't mean to offend anybody, but I think fools are everywhere. We sympathize. We see children dying. Well, I also feel emotional when I see children of Gaza suffering. But the question is, who is responsible? Instead of standing for the truth, but because truth is multidimensional, and we are not able to discern truth from falsehood, we are not able to make sense of what we see. We just get a bit emotional, emotionally tickled, and we project our hatred on somebody. Let's blame someone, anyone. I cannot see these children dying anymore. So we start blaming. Oh, the state of Israel. Oh, but the state of Israel said 1,000 times for the population, evacuate, get out of this area. We are bombing this house. It has militia in it, get out. And the Hamas people wanted the children to stay in the area. They wanted civilians to stay in the area as human shields because they want civilians and innocent people to die. If civilians, children, women, elderly people don't die anymore, this means there is no money. I guess this is clear right now, right? The Palestinian problem, and you know, I love my people. I was just walking down the street and I saw a woman on the side of the street asking for help. And you know, I see motherhood wherever I go. You know, we are not separated. They're part of us. They're part of the human family. You know, wherever I go, I see my mother, and I see my grandmother, and I see my neighbors. I understand their struggle. But this is the time to take some responsibility. Enough blaming Israel. It's a very dirty game. This is the attitude of escapists who always like to blame. Show me one example of a Palestinian leadership that came in one conference and they said, we are so sorry, we were wrong at one single freaking policy throughout their entire struggle. Not even once. They took responsibility. They're perfect. They cannot make mistakes. Because all the mistakes simply are blamed on Israel. While the Israeli prime minister and the Israeli government, which is, you know, a bunch of other politicians, you know, and I'm not a big fan of politicians anyway, but they are accountable to the stupid media, at least. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend the media of the free world. Back in 2004, a building collapsed in Ramallah, my hometown. And because of corruption and because of the limitation of the Palestinian Authority, they were not prepared to have a rescue team. People were under the rubble, screaming, dying, practically, and people could not get them out. So they needed the help of the Israeli authorities now. But it was during the second Palestinian Intifada. There were airplanes, there were assassinations, there were suicide bombing attacks. Every checkpoint had so many school children pushed by the wise Palestinian leaders of all Palestinian factions, including Mahmoud Abbas' faction, Fatah, to go down to the checkpoints and throw stones on the Israeli soldiers where they can die, where we can create more chaos and get more global attention. So now what can we do? I was part of the Israeli intelligence at that time. And by the way, I'm sorry that I didn't take you through the chronological order of my story. We wouldn't finish today. I know why we are here. Some of you know who I am. Some of you don't. It really doesn't matter if you don't. I say what I say. It's going to take you a while to digest it. Good luck. So now, I'm part of the Israeli intelligence, and we need to see what's going on, you know, the safety of the troops. Those are people now, they're coming to rescue. They are on a humanitarian mission. So I was in the area, and the Israeli Defense Force came to protect the rescue team, and they were able to save dozens of Palestinian workers from beneath the rubble. They worked an entire day. And the Palestinian people watching. The children of the refugee camps, women, everybody is watching the rescue. And I thought to myself, how do they feel about this right now? For me, you know, I was fascinated, you know, to see, you know, how democracy functions in situations like this. You know, war is something, conflict is something, humanity is something else. Now there is a crisis. People are dying, and we are here, not because we are Israelis, because we are human beings trying to help other human beings, regardless of what happened last night, regardless of what's going to happen tomorrow, or possibly on our way out of the city of Ramallah. And this is what I think the rescue team did not expect. What would happen on the way out of Ramallah after a 1 day of saving dozens of Palestinian lives? On the way out, hundreds of Palestinians said thank you to the Israeli Defense Forces and rescue team in a very special way by throwing stones, Molotov cocktails, and shooting on the Israeli vehicles for about 5 miles from the city center all the way to the checkpoint. This is ugly, and this is not only one incident. I say this is ugly because the Palestinian people in general, the collective consciousness, and I challenge their best philosopher to come out and debate me. I don't like political debate, but if they have somebody who has the power and the guts to challenge my logic, to challenge my truth, let them step out. But they don't. They like to stay in gray areas, in shallow waters. This is where they prefer to be. They like the type of media like CNN because they are too emotional and they know how to manipulate them. The honest truth that Palestinians and Arabians in general, including the immigrants that you're having here, hundreds of thousands of them, who are not going to fit in your society. I'm not trying to create a phobia, but you're about to face some serious problems here, my friends. Before you talk about the Palestinian-Israeli problem, well, Israel knows how to deal with its own problem. You need to redirect your lens from the outside to the inside, because you've got some serious issues here on the ground. And you did a very nice job of convincing people who live on the other side of the world that you have created the perfect system and paradise, and they believed. And all of them immigrated from that world to this world. Now the problem, that they are going to be in a shock, that this is not the paradise that meets with their imagination. And there is going to be a void, and there is going to be a gap of both people. And only God will be able to bridge that. I hope that in the meantime, there won't be lots of violence. I speak because I'm an immigrant myself. I know the hard choices of an immigrant. Because if you are not willing to drop everything that you know and accept the new life and see things for what they are and see life in all its forms, you are going to be disappointed all the time. There are people, part of the human family, who live in a deep state of delusion. This is a fundamental problem. As lust, hatred, anger, greed, delusion, they're all fundamental problems, human conditions that don't differentiate between North and South, between Catholic and Protestant. The ones who believe in the Council of the 1879 or the Council of 1912, the human condition does not differentiate. Those are the enemies within. And man won't become a man until overcoming the animal within. There are people who share the same form, but they are in deep delusion, and we have responsibility towards them. We are not superior to them. That's the difference. And that's what makes actually the whole difference. That if you think superior, this means that you have responsibility towards them. The state of Israel is responsible. Responsible and responsibility comes from the root respond, responding, being spontaneous, being democratic, accepting other opinion, accepting that there are so many individuals and each individual is an expression of the divine and each one is different, but under the umbrella of divine intelligence and its creativity. And the way of the divine is gentleness, is understanding, is tolerance, is love, is compassion. People who choose to use violence, this is the mentality of the 7th century and the 6th century, the dark ages of Arabia. And some people still living in it. They need to understand and see a very clear message from people who live in freedom. I'm assuming that we are the free world, right? So if we are the free world and we really understand what freedom means, then we have responsibility towards those people. We cannot encourage them by giving them money and by accepting the fact that they are victimizing themselves and they never take responsibility and they just blame the victim in the whole situation. By the name of justice. This way we didn't do justice. Justice is not black and white. This doesn't mean that we persecute those people. This doesn't mean that we punish them. But at least we don't give them more money. They want to use violence for money. We don't give them money. We unify. They want a Palestinian state, but they don't know how to be independent. Well, what's the point? Well, first, show me an example. How can you be independent, democratic, instead of just playing the democratic game to convince the whole world that I am democratic, now give me lots of money. They do it for the outside world. They didn't do it for the welfare and the health of the society. They do it just to convince people that we are modern, that we are responsible, and now we can receive everything. No, they need to show a real example of responsibility, of accountability, not to the European Union, not only for the United States of America and the superpowers, but to existence itself, to life. This is not about hypocrisy. They have been hypocrites for a long time, and many people have been dying because of their hypocrisy. This hypocrisy has to come to an end. By the power of truth, Israel's existence is not accidental. Israel is where all the infinite forces of existence, of the cosmos, of life, play together to manifest this beautiful thing, the only light in a very dark region. It's not up. Let me please finish. It's not up to the superpowers, and it's not up to the Norwegian moralists. To those I say, wake up. Wake up before it's too late. If you want to mock the other party, find a different reason. There's so many social problems here in Norway. Focus on them. Forget about Israel. If you don't understand the reality there, forget about it. Don't make a stupid judgment, because the consequences of this judgment and whatever money you're given towards that and support will just make things worse and worse every day. And more children will die. Those people need to ask themselves, have I contributed towards killing more children in Gaza while I'm thinking that I help those children? This is how a truthful person thinks. It's not a funny thing, truly. It's a very serious issue. And if I have not lived it, I wouldn't have actually the authority to stand here this afternoon and say those words. I know that some of them are harsh. And this is why I'm very controversial. And this is why many people label me as Islamophobic. But it's okay. It doesn't matter what the entire world think of us. What really matters, to know who we are. My stand with Israel is fundamental. It's a beautiful model. What are we talking about? We're talking about the nation of Moses, of Jesus the Christ. Jesus the Christ, people. Protestant and Catholics. Come on. He's coming from a Jewish background. No offense, but he's Jewish, whether you like it or not. Einstein. Those for the ones who believe in science. And for the ones who love art, think about Steven Spielberg, which I love very much. Again, Israel is not only a government. As the ambassador of Israel said, it's a government. It has its own mistakes and faults. It's happened in every system. There is no perfect system. Mistakes happen. And you can challenge them. And actually, the Israeli government is very open to be challenged. They cannot hide. They claim to be a democracy. Take advantage of that. Kick their butt if they do something wrong. I will be with you if I have time. But don't criticize an entire journey of a nation that has shown so much love, so much responsibility, just because of political things. This is very cheap, and it's very shallow, and it's very naive, and it's very ignorant. It saddens me to see examples like this in what's so-called the free world. Because this is not freedom. To be free is to see things for what they are without the influence of the outside world. You don't need the media to tell you the truth. You can reason. You can see through all the layers of ignorance. Okay, gosh, I have 16 more minutes. I don't know what to say. I try to conclude. Is that right, 16 more minutes? Okay, I try to conclude in a few more minutes. I don't want people to be bored. It's really sad, how politics separate us, But I just came to realize that there is no way to separate motherhood. And motherhood is not only limited to our mothers, biological mothers. It's the motherhood of Earth. I had the privilege to meet with so many beautiful mothers from Israel, Jewish mothers. Some of them are annoying, I have to say. But loving people, people who think mothers are only Palestinian mothers, they're mistaken. Throughout the journey, I met so many beautiful manifestations of motherhood, of fatherhood, of brotherhood, sisterhood. In every culture, in every country, wherever I go, their presence is just around. We're never alone. We're not Norwegians. We're not Israelis. We're not Palestinians, we're not Arabians, we're one family. But sometimes the political borders are the necessary evil. And the Israeli borders need to be protected. And the Western civilization need to be protected. It's the necessary evil. I hope at some point we will live in a world where everybody will be responsible. So we don't need the police, and we don't need the traffic lights, and we don't need the intelligence services and the secret service and all that, and the bodyguards. Those are not my bodyguards, by the way. So eventually we are going to get there. But in the meantime, when there is a certain territory that we protect a certain idea, certain value system, it's okay for now. And I am pro that. Democracy is not the final solution. Democracy is just a cure for the human condition, for the human problem. Because we cannot agree on one thing. And instead of fighting, we came up with this model. The Greek philosophers, thanks to them, Socrates and Plato and others. But actual and true democracy was never born. If we want to criticize a democratic system, the only democracy in the Middle East, what do we think of ourselves? Do we think that we have a perfect model of democracy here in Norway? Or in Europe? Well, look at corruption. And look at the politicians here anyway. So before we throw stones on other people's houses, we need to make sure that our house is not of glass. Anyway, many things to say. It has been a privilege. And again, I'm not a politician. Maybe you can sense this. That's why I choose to criticize a little. I'm not big fond of politicians, priests, mullahs. I choose the truth. I choose God. I choose the divine. And I don't need a middle person to connect me there. And I hope that this is the approach of each one of us, to get out, to drop our masks, to drop our identities, and come to a place of freedom. The Pope had a big conference, and he announced that he had very good news, but also bad news. The very good news that Jesus the Christ, the second coming of Jesus the Christ, is about to happen. He's going to come and bring all the Christians, all the denominations, all together to unify them under the ceiling of one church, one temple, the church of Christ, the church of God. And everybody cheered, whoa, amazing. But then he said, now is the bad news. The bad news that the conference is going to take place in Salt Lake City. Thank you so much for coming. God bless you. God bless the free world. God bless the state of Israel. Thank you so much.